Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Happy Monday.
Everybody's got a different background but me.
I know.
I'm a loser over here.
My background's just kind of sad because it's full of moving boxes.
Brandy's life is just constant, just nonstop, crazy.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited because this is step one to me having like a really solid podcasting space in my new apartment. So that's we guys just got to get to the new apartment.
Hey, do it for the gram, you know?
Exactly.
We're making it big time if Brandy's getting an official podcasting space at her new place. So that's how you know the show's doing really well.
And Will's background almost looks fake right now.
Yeah, this is my green screen. Just kidding. But I'm in Auburn. I'm in your hometown, Michael. I'm right in your backyard.
You haven't even come by and say hi yet, but that's okay.
I know. I had to work out, get my coffee, finish up some paperwork, prep for the show.
Work out.
Yeah, work out. But I'm super pumped. We're here for the retreat. Brandy's not here, unfortunately, due to the move and some other stuff that came up. You know, life is a little chaotic, I guess.
A little hectic.
Yeah.
I'm very sad. I'm so sad to be missing the food.
I'm not gonna lie. Last night, so Michael Shamali, who is our videographer and photographer, and then also one of my team members at Hospitality FM, he flew in with me and we had dinner last night. What an experience. So we're at the University Hotel, not the Laurel Hotel that we're going to be at with everybody else. And they had like pictures of us and they had all these descriptions and things, like they were ready. And the manager just took great care of us, comped our dinner. It was what an experience. And the food was phenomenal. So good. So good, Brandy. You missed out big. You missed out big.
Oh no. I'm going to expect like a detailed voice note after each meal describing what you had.
Wait until you see the video footage. We're going to capture about all the food, and yeah, it's going to be
we'll ask how they got that deep color of green or whatever you asked in Barcelona. I can't remember.
I also miss our Barcelona trip. That was a great dinner.
Yeah, potentially more in Barcelona later.
Yeah, TBD on the topics of today. But
coming out of that, yeah. So Will, welcome to Auburn. We're excited to welcome 20 others to the Horst Schulz Hospitality School. And we'll share probably a nice little recap on this next week, but stay tuned for pictures and updates.
And special retreat member only announcements. People are going to get some inside scoops of some stuff happening behind the GMH ecosystem before everybody else. So if you're not attending our retreat this year, you're going to miss out on getting the breaking news, and then we'll announce it in a week or two officially. But yeah, everyone's getting the sneak peek today or tomorrow, one of these days. But hey, no big deal. Anyways, moving on. I'm excited for the retreat. To give some listeners some context before we jump into the episode, this is a kind of a soft brand or kind of a side brand of Good Morning Hospitality that we call Good Morning Retreats. We're going to try to do this probably once or twice a year. Not this exact retreat, but getting operators and vendors, small amount of vendors compared to operators, together and creating these awesome retreats. So big excitement. I'm happy. I'm pumped. And I think my Wi-Fi is glitching. So if anyone listening, my bad. But
it's not me this week.
It's not Brandy. It's all me. But outside of that, we have to give a big shout out to our partners at Sojo. Not only do they power this podcast, they powered our retreat this year, and they gave us a big opportunity to activate some of the Sojo amenities for our guests and for our attendees, and then plus like many other things again that you're going to miss out if you didn't attend this year. So shout out to Sojo. You can get free amenities for 30 days by going to getsojo.com/GMH. The amenities are awesome. They're labeled and packaged easily for your housekeeping team If you have more than 50 homes or quote unquote doors, you can actually make your brand the hero by putting your logo on their amenities, so that way your guests understand who they're actually seeing with. So getsojo.com/GMH. All right, guys, let's jump into the episode. Sorry for any glitching. Let's go on.
Audio sounds good, Will. So I've got a question for both of you. When you've booked on Airbnb before, have you ever been denied? Has a host ever told you, nope, no thanks?
I have
No?
not.
Okay. Well, it's happened to me before. But I
Shocker.
I was very transparent going to Cartagena for my bachelor party. So we had 8 guys going down there, and the host wasn't comfortable with that. And I get it. When I had my house in Auburn rented out for game days, I probably turned down 4 reservations for every one I took, just because I didn't want to rent to college sorority or fraternity. Call me crazy. But CNBC put out an entire article about why did the host reject me? And it dives into what hosts are doing and how they're vetting their guests. We know there's some great guest vetting services out there that exist primarily for professional managers. But this article even goes into hosts looking up prospective guests' Facebooks and Instagrams and profiles and all of that. And you know what? I'm not against it. I don't see there's any problem with it. I mean, obviously you don't want to be discriminatory by any way, shape, or form. But if you have a no party policy and it's a fraternity inquiring for your house, I think you have the right to say no. I think there's definitely a can of worms that can be opened up with that. But largely speaking, particularly for the individually owned short-term rentals, half of Airbnb's market, I think people have a right to let in guests that they want and not let in guests that they don't want. Brandy, operating at scale, what's your thought?
Yeah, there's like one of the stories here was like she, looked up her Instagram and the woman was promoting a party at the home that she was renting. So like obviously you deny that and all of that. So I think it just becomes this tricky line between people just, being perhaps discriminatory in the people that they're rejecting, and then also protecting your property, because one of the big sections of the article is about credit card problems. And this is something that we deal with all the time. Sometimes those fraudulent credit cards get through whatever software you have. But if you can look up the person's Instagram and you see that it's a totally different person than the person who's booking with you, that can save you some chargebacks. And usually those guests are very destructive. I think at scale, you don't have the time to like background check, like to this extent, like go through their social media and things like that. But certainly if you're a smaller operator, or you have maybe the bigger home that's prone to like party houses and stuff like that, it's worth it if you have the time to kind of do a little background research.
Yeah,
Will?
I agree. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like, we're not at scale like Brandy is, but even with the 60 to 70, properties or rooms, including our hotel, it's not feasible to like actually research that many guests or research guests like that in that depth unless you have 1 or 2 properties. That makes sense. I personally, like, shameless plug to this other company that I'm friends with called Life Brand. I've used them personally to clean up my socials, just because you never know like what young 12, 13, 14-year-old Will posted back in the day, and sometimes stuff like that can catch up to you. So I think like I've done stuff like that to like clear social media, but I think from an operator's perspective, it's just not something you can probably do at scale. We've done it for like in the past when we had a big 22,000 square foot castle. Yeah, we check every guest because obviously we want to make sure that the castle is going to be treated right, and not a castle that Michael's used to. It's one in the States, so it's very much a home castle, not a hotel or
Not a
like
real
historic.
castle.
Not a real castle.
Yeah,
Full fortress.
yeah.
But
But yeah, it's very different.
I think the flip side of this article could have gone in a different direction as well. So hosts look up their short-term rental guests. Well, if you use that time when you're looking up their socials to see that, oh, they have twin 5-year-olds. Great. Well, let's leave a little kids book and, a set of crayons or something, right? Like, you can also use some of those moments to spin it into a positive hospitality moment. And really, that's a lot of what we want to be discussing this week in Auburn is how can we, in short-term rentals, deliver on hospitality that we'll experience last night and our guests will experience all week. So I think it's the one-to-one looking up their social medias and what they do for a living and all of that could be a little too laborious for Will at 60, 70 units, Brandy at 600, 700 units or more. Don't let me undersell you guys. But it is about how can short-term rentals catch up with quality hotels on hospitality. And
well, I also
frankly there isn't in my experience. I haven't experienced the level of hospitality in a quality short-term rental that I have in a quality hotel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I don't know how this hotel specifically for both like the Laurel Hotel, which is where our guests are gonna be, and then where I'm at today, for even their size, they weren't just doing it for us. Like they have sheets of every guest in attendance. Like there's gotta be some type of technology on the back end. There's no way they just are paying someone to go, hey, look up every guest social media and see if you find the right Michael Smith or whatever.
I don't
right?
know.
Like,
That's why you have cheap labor, like remote labor to do that kind of work. Because I think that's kind of the problem is that there isn't really an effective way like to do all of that kind of scraping. But I also think that this is why you see Airbnb saying that their individual hosts are the better hosts, or the better stays. And it's like, first, they're dealing with a smaller volume. And if you have like 2 or 3 guests a month, you have the time to kind of go through and see that they have those kids coming and provide that extra step of, unreasonable hospitality that makes the stay more memorable and more adjacent to a luxury hotel experience. And that's what we were kind of talking about before the show is that lately we've been having really, really great hotel experiences. Now they've been at a higher level and those are more expensive, right? And that's you're paying for that luxury, but you really rarely get that on our side of the fence.
we did not see that type of service during COVID, though. Even when all of us were traveling, we were
True.
getting great rates and like we were, wearing masks and all this other crap. Like we were getting horrible service. Rooms weren't cleaned. Guest staff at the front desk were rude and grumpy and just no eye contact, no nothing. It was just, here's your room keys, get out of my face. I don't even care if you're a platinum member or a gold member or whatever. Like, get out of here.
Well,
It was wild.
You know who else said "get out of my face"? Was New York City to short-term rentals.
Segue King. Are you taking my new are you taking my title of segues?
I don't know.
Boy.
I nailed that one. That was pretty good.
That was good.
So New York had this ban on Airbnb, and we called it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out, but people that had short-term rentals will find a different platform. And so I guess in the months that it's been banned, people have turned to Facebook. And so now New York City is trying to ban Facebook short-term rental listings. So they're going to be playing whack-a-mole for a long time because then it's going to move to other platforms and eventually, we'll see how it all pans out. But if you make onerous regulation with poor enforcement, then a black market will arise. And it sounds crazy that short-term rentals are a black market activity, but it is New York City, and crazy stuff happens up there.
Well, in this one Business Insider article, they were talking with a host and they're like, I think that they're really more focused on the bigger players than like small people who might be renting out. And I was like, that is Not the case. It is honestly probably easier to go after, like a bigger company will have the resources potentially to stall and fight or do all of the laborious paperwork and all of that. Whereas if you inconvenience a small operator or just a single host, that could be enough to put them out. But yeah, I mean, people will find a way. It was happening before Airbnb got to New York. This isn't short-term rentals in New York didn't just appear because of one website. So it'll, you know,
Yeah, just like
Yeah,
Ubers or taxis, didn't just pop up because of Uber, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
when I moved to Auburn and wanted to short-term rent my house for game days, I looked up the city. I contacted them to see if it was legal, and they said it's illegal. And I said, "Well, show me where it says it's illegal," and it wasn't actually a law. So I told them, "I'm going to be doing this. Here's my name. Here's my address. If it's illegal, then you're welcome to find me. But I don't see that it's illegal." And the guy's like, "Well, you're right. It's not. We can't enforce anything." It's like, okay, well, I'm going to do it. So if the law changes, here's my name and number. Let me know.
Call me.
A little different in New York City than a small town, but nonetheless, like, I think the single hosts and the professionals, they want to comply with the rules and they want to comply with the law. But there has to be a law, and the rules have to make sense. And not only do they have to make sense, they have to be enforceable. And if everyone else is doing something, even if it's wrong, people tend to kind of go along with the herd. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's 10,000 listings on Facebook Marketplace for short-term rentals in New York City.
Well, that happened in Miami Beach where they were fining, like, I think the first instance was 20,000 and then it went up in increases of 20,000. And then they just did away with all of that because no one was paying the fines. So it's like
Wow.
you have to have something that's actually enforceable. But again, shout out to the real winners in Jersey City who are raking it
seriously.
in.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And who knew Jersey City?
Yeah, you get to see the city from across the river. That's, it's all about the views.
That's all you have to be. So the last kind of core main topic for us today kind of goes along with what we've been talking about on this show for a while. Jamie Lane from AirDNA came on a couple weeks ago, gave us some stats that the hardest hit segment of short-term rentals is budget and economy. And there was an article in Skift Friday, I guess, where the extended stay hotel boom gets a reality check. And in it outlines a lot of the stuff that short-term rentals have struggled with. It's not necessarily even a lack of demand. It's an overabundance of supply. And the economy extended stay hotel segment year over year has had an increase of 12% in supply. That's an insane amount of new supply that hit the market within a 12-month span. The price point for an economy extended stay hotel is less than $90 a night. The mid-tier is $90 to $135, and the upscale extended stay hotels are $135 or more. And that's the kind of classification breakdown. I haven't seen a short-term rental for less than $135 plus, a $1,500 cleaning fee. I saw that the other day.
He's never gonna let that one go.
No.
Plus cleaning fees. It's gonna be hard to compete as a urban or suburban short-term rental with an upscale extended stay hotel product.
Yeah, I also think, I wish we could get some data maybe not from AirDNA, but a hotel, data on this, because it would be interesting to see the geographics of all this, like the demographics of these extended stays, because some of these call to mind kind of smaller tier, second, third tier cities where I think even like the smallest amount of oversupply will just totally, ruin the market because there isn't a large market to begin with. So that would be interesting to see. And it just kind of shows like people like jump the gun. Everybody's doing too much at once. But I think you also start to see these extended stays that are maybe at the mid tier. I don't know what like luxury extended stay is equivalent to, but those are the direct competitors to the budget short-term rentals. And so it's interesting that that whole segment is struggling, but I would say my guess would be that the budget STRs are kind of taking the budget extended stays, lunch in this situation.
Well, to me, it's pretty funny, in a sense, at least. You can basically see the delivery of these units in 2024, the past 12 months, and you roll that back 24 to 36 months when short-term rentals were pumping, and it was the hottest thing. Everyone was staying in them. COVID, it was the only place you could go. No one wanted to check into a hotel and have a front desk and interact with other people in the lobby. This extended stay stuff was ideal for people in 2021. But it's 2024 now. Supply on the short-term rental side alone has increased probably 20%. In the extended stay segment, just in the past 12 months, it's increased 12%. But you can see like hotel brands 2, 3, 4 years ago were like, oh man, we need a better extended stay product now. And by now they meant, 36 months later, and oh shit, we're getting $90 a night. How are we ever going to make money? It's comical how you can kind of see the pendulum, the knee-jerk reaction. Oh, they're eating our lunch. Airbnb's eating our lunch. Well, now, they've over-committed, over-delivered, and now the market conditions have largely changed. And I'm very, very curious right now. We're in this luxury push for pretty much all of hospitality, for short-term rentals and for hotels. Is that luxury push going to go away in 2 or 3 years? I think history shows luxury doesn't really change. But if you build too much supply, then demand isn't going to increase by that much. So tirade over.
Yeah, well, it's a Michael rant instead of a Brandy rant. But I agree. Like the luxury sector, is usually, it obviously like shrinks and grows depending on what's happening, but it's usually pretty solid even in economic downturns. But I do think we're in, we're in for a little bit of a bumpy ride, probably not just on the STR side, but in the hotel product that's similar to extended stay, especially now also with additions like Apartments by Marriott. There's a lot of different types of supply happening. So yeah, it's going to be a little bumpy.
A little bumpy, but I still keep coming back to the time. Well, not the time. A month ago, 2 months ago, at the Skift STR Summit, where Jen from Homes and Villas was talking about 95% of their Bonvoy members are booking homes. Like, I don't think I think that loyalty and distribution play, probably one of the smartest things a hotel brand could have done. That's just my opinion, especially for any type of rocky landscape we're about to hit. But I will say, yes, everything else is going to have a hard time. And you guys brought up a certain article that I want to ask you a question on in our group chat around. Oh, go ahead.
Before we transition, I got one more point to nail on this one. So when hotels in city centers with extended stay product start to struggle, can we guess what's going to happen?
What
regulations are going to start coming worse and worse and worse. The hotels are going to start lobbying to ban short-term rentals and get rid of their competition and drive business their way. It's what happened in New York City with hotels writ large, but expected in all the cities that these people have built all this extended stay product in that's not booking because oversupply. So look out for bad regulations, particularly if your next door neighbor of your short-term rental happens to be an extended stay hotel. And not to mention next door neighbors, Will,
I think Brandy has a point or a comment
Okay,
to make
all right.
before
Oh
we
no,
yeah.
no. There was a really great article that you wanted to bring up, Will,
Yeah.
that about kind of dealing with STRs and the neighbors. So why don't you introduce the real deal article that was getting us a little feisty earlier?
Oh, real deal article. Well, so I think this is the one that we're talking about. If not, then please correct me. Airbnb hiring a like director or head of residency basically for multifamily unit type short-term rentals. And not only like I think living next to a short-term rental in a suburban neighborhood or quiet town or even having neighbors a little bit spread out, I don't think that's a big of an issue. For me, I don't think I would mind if my neighbor was putting their home on Airbnb. Truly wouldn't. Obviously, the moment there's a party, yeah, but I have my neighbor's contact. Just call them, make sure they have a noise device in there or something like that. Whatever. Easy problems to fix, in my opinion. But living next to an apartment neighbor that has it on as a short-term rental is a little different. Those walls are a little thinner. There's a little less space. Um, I would hate that living it into like a multifamily situation. So, Brandy, please correct me if that's the article
No,
you are
yeah.
talking about.
Well, so Airbnb has hired like the head of this division, and this section of Airbnb has existed for a long time. This is
Yeah.
like why so many of the new buildings going up in Miami are not just STR friendly, but specifically Airbnb friendly. And I remember a couple
Mhm.
of years ago, I had drinks with one of the guys on their team. I don't know if he's still there, but at the time, was kind of talking shop, and I was like, "You're about to be bad for my business." And I was also like, just kind of, I thought he was going to face a lot more resistance. And then when then you see the amount of supply that's coming on, and then you're like, of course, there's no resistance.
Mhm.
There's so much of this supply, and people want to list their, their units. But we've talked about this before, is just because people have the ability to do it, does that mean they're going to do it? And then if this is not tightly controlled by the building, to your point, Will, it is. If you have like 4 apartments around you that are all hosting people during Ultra or New Year's or whatever it is, then that's going to create a really tough, you know, get resident experience. So yeah, I think this guy probably has a lot of policy
Yeah.
work ahead of him, I would say.
Well, the one thing that I want to say is that Airbnb has never, in my opinion, successfully gotten into multifamily residency type inventory, whether it was through Nido in 2017, 18, or right before COVID, to many of their other multifamily experiences or leaps of faith, I call them. They've never been successful in that. It's just not a good outcome. And even places like Central, which I love the brand and I think it's really creative on how they've done it. And I almost moved into a Central downtown in Denver, and I even convinced one of my friends, Riley, to move in, and she loved it, but also had like the experience of like, okay, I don't feel like I have a leasing office. I feel like I have a front desk. My front desk doesn't know how to answer my leasing questions, yet I have to like do all this move around. And then there's constant parties in my building, which is totally fine because we're young and we're single and no kids and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, there's just a time where people want to live, not experience other people on vacation, and they just want to live their life. So I don't know. I think Airbnb, that's my will rant of the day, is like I don't think they've ever been successful into, this kind of multifamily unit venture. I think they should leave it to the Romies of the world and the Centrals and yeah, call it at that.
So this article alludes to stuff much, much deeper where they're going
Mhm.
after purpose-built suburban communities that are short-term rental friendly. And to me, that's maybe a
I
bridge too far.
Well, I think it makes, like, I totally can see that side of it, but I think it makes sense from like Airbnb's side of things, right? Like you're constantly trying to expand, you know, your product offering, trying to become more entrenched into all these different ecosystems, especially getting into large scale development, there's some sort of like safety net in there. But yeah, I can see why you would be hesitant to that, to embrace that.
Yeah,
I would love to know from the listeners who would want to live in a suburban neighborhood with everyone being able to rent on short-term rentals or on Airbnb. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I would want my kids in that environment.
Not in my backyard.
Right.
Oh, look who's a NIMBY now.
Look, I mean, it's also less attractive to go stay as a guest in a suburban neighborhood. Like, your quality of guest is either going to be really good or really bad. So I don't know the answer to that one. I haven't put a whole lot of thought to suburban short-term rental guests and the profiles that would be attracted to stay there. But also, you can't, like, you're going to make a lot more money using that property as a long-term rental than a short-term rental anyway, because it's just a lot more attractive to have a family environment. I couldn't agree more, Terry. Not a chance.
Well, I also think that these are just kind of selling points. I mean, like, for example, in the original product, which is, urban multifamily, it's a selling point for people who are buying these condos as their second or third property. It's a way, it's more of like an investment play, I think, more so rather than like your average person who's going to be renting it out in the program. So I think, also, if it's purpose built, then you buy into it knowing that that's the environment that you're buying into, rather than a residential neighborhood where they just start popping up. So maybe that's the alternative.
That's a good point.
So
they're gonna probably try and sell these at a premium. I mean, if you look at,
because they're generating revenue, it's not like it's just costing you a mortgage. It actually it should put some money in your pocket, at least. I don't know,
in theory,
or at least be a wash. Yeah. Property taxes, mortgage, insurance, all the stuff. But yeah, I don't know.
We've covered a ton today. That was probably the most articles or topics we've discussed, and we didn't even get to tourists in Barcelona being squirted with water guns. So we'll save that for our European crew. But can you imagine sitting down on holiday with your family and being squirted with a water gun just for eating and being a guest in their city? It's the opposite of hospitality. We're going to report back all of the good things about hospitality and what we've learned in Auburn soon. So Thanks for tuning in.
Amen. And Terry White, next time we do one of these retreats, I want you here. FYI. You've been such a great listener and supporter of the show. We got to get you to one of our in-person
summoned.
You've been summoned. Anyways, great show. Brandy, what's up for you this week?
I'm continuing the move, as you can see behind me if you're watching. And then I'm getting ready. I have another wedding in Europe next week. So
the European wedding tour continues.
It's the last one. It's the last European wedding, but not the last wedding.
Michael, how about you? Outside of obviously hosting this retreat in your backyard? Not literally.
Yeah, that's the big activity of this week. That's for sure. So I'll see you in a couple hours.
I love it. Well, I'll see you in a couple hours. To all of our listeners, again, shout out to Terry White. We would love to have you next time. I'll make sure you're on the VIP invite list. Esther, thanks for tuning in. Damien Sheridan, my man. We can't wait to have you guys cover the European Barcelona drama at hand. For all the listeners, like and subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Give us a 5-star review. If you do, I might have a little gift for you. Not trying to rhyme and be Dr. Seuss over here, but thank you guys so much for tuning in, supporting the show. I love doing this show with you guys. And of course, all of our other hosts from hotels to Europe. Love you guys as well. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys again next week.